What happens when your husband hands you a thick envelope right after you return from a party, his face colder than you've ever seen it? How did one moment on the dance floor with my ex lead to my whole life unraveling, starting with legal documents that left me speechless? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Ginevra Blackwood, and I thought I was clever enough to have it all. I was wrong about everything. The suburban house on Maple Street looked perfect from the outside. White picket fence, manicured lawn, the whole American dream package. But inside, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. "You're late again," Elias said quietly, not looking up from his architectural drawings spread across the dining table. His voice carried that controlled tone I'd grown to hate, the one that made me feel like a child being scolded. I dropped my purse on the counter with more force than necessary. I had to finish the quarterly reports. You know how demanding my job is. The lie rolled off my tongue easily. I'd actually spent 2 hours at Murphy's bar with Adrian, my ex-boyfriend who'd recently moved back to town. "Your job as a part-time HR admin requires you to work until 9 p.m. now." Elias finally looked up, his brown eyes searching my face. At 35, he still had that earnest look that had attracted me in college, but now it just felt suffocating. "Don't start with me, Elias. I'm exhausted." I moved toward the stairs, hoping to avoid this conversation entirely. "Mommy!" 7-year-old Hazel bounded down the stairs in her princess pajamas, her dark curls bouncing. "I waited for you to read my bedtime story." Guilt twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it down. "Mommy's tired tonight, sweetheart. Daddy can read to you." Hazel's face fell. "But you promised yesterday you'd read the new book about the Dragon Princess." "I said Daddy can do it." My voice came out sharper than intended. Hazel's eyes filled with tears, and she ran back upstairs. Elias stood up slowly, his jaw tight. "She waited for you for 2 hours, Ginevra. 2 hours. Oh, so now I'm the terrible mother because I have to work. Maybe if you made more money as a junior architect, I wouldn't need to put in extra hours." The words were designed to hurt, and I saw them hit their mark. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it quickly. Adrian asking if I could meet tomorrow. I smiled despite myself. "Who's texting you at 9:30 at night?" Elias asked. "My sister Tina. She's having relationship problems." Another lie, but Elias didn't need to know that. "Your sister who lives in California. Isn't it 6:30 there?" I felt my face flush. "She works late too. God, Elias, when did you become so paranoid? It's like living with a detective." "I'm not paranoid. I'm concerned about my wife who's been coming home later and later, who's always on her phone, and who seems to have forgotten she has a family." That's rich coming from someone who spends every weekend at his mother's house. I knew bringing Linda into this would escalate things, but I was cornered. "I spend time with my mother because she's been asking why you never come around anymore. She's been asking why you seem so distant at family gatherings. Your mother never liked me. She thinks I'm not good enough for her precious son." "That's not true, and you know it." My phone buzzed again. This time I made sure Elias couldn't see the screen as I read Adrian's message. "Can't stop thinking about you. When can we be alone?" The thrill of being wanted, truly wanted, made my pulse quicken. When was the last time Elias had made me feel this way? When was the last time he'd looked at me like I was desirable instead of just the woman who shared his mortgage? "I'm going to take a bath," I announced, heading upstairs. "Ginevra, we need to talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. You're imagining problems that don't exist." As I climbed the stairs, I heard Elias's quiet voice. "Hazel, want me to read that dragon story?" In the bathroom, I locked the door and called Adrian. "Hey, beautiful." His voice was warm honey in my ear. "I can't talk long. Elias is being suspicious." "Maybe it's time to stop sneaking around. You deserve better than him, Gin. You always did." "It's complicated. There's Hazel to think about." Kids are resilient. She'd probably be happier with parents who aren't constantly fighting. Through the bathroom door, I could hear Elias reading to Hazel, doing different voices for the characters. She was giggling, really laughing for the first time in weeks. "I have to go," I whispered. "The Hendersons' anniversary party is Saturday at Romano's. I'm bartending. Will you be there?" "Probably." "Good. I miss you." After hanging up, I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror. At 32, I still looked good. My blonde hair was perfectly styled, my makeup flawless despite the long day. I deserved to feel alive, to feel wanted. Elias had grown complacent, taking me for granted. He never complimented me anymore, never made me feel special. When I came out of the bathroom, the house was quiet. Elias was in bed, pretending to read, but I could tell he was waiting for me. "Is Hazel asleep?" I asked, slipping into my nightgown. "Yes. She asked why you seemed sad lately." "I'm not sad. I'm fine." "Are you? Are we fine?" I turned off my bedside lamp without answering. In the darkness, I could feel Elias watching me, but I kept my back to him. "Ginevra?" "I'm tired, Elias. Can we please just sleep?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, I heard him sigh and turn over. But I lay awake for hours, thinking about Adrian's hands, his smile, the way he made me feel like the most important person in the world. Elias's breathing eventually evened out into sleep, but I remained wide awake, planning. Saturday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth for October. I spent extra time getting ready, choosing a black dress that hugged my curves and showed just enough skin to be interesting. The Hendersons' 25th anniversary party would be the perfect opportunity to remind everyone, including myself, that I was still attractive, still vibrant. "You look nice," Elias said quietly as I applied my lipstick in the hallway mirror. He was wearing a simple button-down shirt and khakis. Safe, boring, predictable. "Thank you." I didn't return the compliment. We dropped Hazel at Linda's house. My mother-in-law greeted us at the door with her usual reserved politeness. "You two have fun," Linda said, but her eyes lingered on my dress with obvious disapproval. "Hazel and I are going to make cookies and watch movies." "Don't let her stay up too late," I said, already walking back to the car. "Ginevra," Linda called after me. "That's a very bold dress for a family friend's anniversary party." Heat flushed my cheeks. "It's perfectly appropriate." Elias said nothing during the drive to Romano's, but I could feel his tension. The restaurant had been decorated with silver and white streamers, and about 40 people were mingling around cocktail tables. A small dance floor had been set up in the center, and I immediately spotted Adrian behind the makeshift bar. He looked good, really good. His dark hair was styled perfectly, and his smile lit up when he saw me. Our eyes met across the room, and I felt that familiar flutter in my stomach. "Ginevra, Elias!" Carol Henderson rushed over to greet us. "Thank you so much for coming. Doesn't everything look wonderful?" "Beautiful," I said, though my attention was focused on Adrian mixing drinks. "The bartender is so charming," Carol continued. "He's new in town, I think." "Adrian something?" "Adrian Lowe," I said quickly. "We went to high school together." "Oh, how nice, you'll have to catch up." Elias's hand found the small of my back, but instead of the gesture feeling supportive, it felt possessive. I stepped slightly away. The evening started innocently enough. We mingled with other couples, made small talk about work and kids and the upcoming holidays. But I was hyper-aware of Adrian's presence, stealing glances at him whenever possible. "I'm going to get a drink," I announced after an hour of forced conversation about property taxes with the Millers. "I'll come with you," Elias said. "I can get my own drink." At the bar, Adrian's smile was devastating. "What can I get for the most beautiful woman in the room?" I felt myself blush. "Vodka tonic, please." "Coming right up." His fingers brushed mine as he handed me the glass. "You look incredible tonight." "Thank you." I glanced back at Elias, who was watching us from across the room. You clean up pretty well yourself. Save me a dance later. I'll think about it. But I was already thinking about it, thinking about being in his arms, feeling desired again. The band started playing around 8 o'clock, and couples began moving to the dance floor. Elias asked me to dance, and I couldn't refuse without causing a scene. His arms felt familiar, but distant as we swayed to a slow song. You seem distracted tonight, he said. Just tired. Long week. Is everything okay with us, Gin? Really okay? The old nickname made me feel guilty for a moment. Everything's fine. You worry too much. But even as I said it, I was looking over his shoulder at Adrian, who was watching us with obvious interest. After the song ended, I excused myself to the ladies' room. On my way back, Adrian intercepted me near the hallway. Dance with me, he said simply. Adrian, I can't. People will talk. Let them talk. You're a grown woman. You can dance with whoever you want. The band was playing something upbeat, and before I could protest further, Adrian was leading me onto the dance floor. His hands were confident on my waist, and he moved with a natural rhythm that Elias had never possessed. God, I've missed this, he murmured in my ear as we danced. Missed what? The way you feel in my arms, the way you look at me. I should have pulled away. I should have gone back to my husband. Instead, I found myself moving closer, letting Adrian's hands roam lower on my back. People are watching, I said, but I didn't step away. Good, let them see how a real man treats you. The song changed to something slower, more intimate. Adrian pulled me against him, and I could feel the warmth of his body, smell his cologne. For a moment, I forgot about everything else. Forgot about Elias, about Hazel, about consequences. I want to be alone with you, Adrian whispered. We can't. Not here. Meet me outside in 10 minutes, by the parking lot. I knew I should say no. Instead, I nodded. When the song ended, I looked around for Elias, but didn't see him. Several people were staring at me with expressions ranging from surprise to disapproval. Linda's sister Margaret was whispering to her husband, both of them looking scandalized. I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt alive. That was quite a performance. Mark, Elias's brother, appeared beside me. His voice was cold with disapproval. It was just dancing, Mark. Was it? Because from where I was standing, it looked like foreplay. Don't be ridiculous. Where's my brother? I don't know, probably sulking somewhere. Mark's eyes hardened. You're going to destroy him, aren't you? And you don't even care. I don't know what you're talking about. But Mark was already walking away, shaking his head. 10 minutes later, I slipped outside to the parking lot. Adrian was waiting by his motorcycle, smoking a cigarette. I was starting to think you wouldn't come, he said. I shouldn't be here. But you are. He flicked the cigarette away and stepped closer. Because you know you deserve better than what you have. Adrian, when was the last time he made you feel beautiful? When was the last time he really looked at you? I couldn't answer because I couldn't remember. I think about you all the time, Adrian continued. About what we had, what we could have again. It's complicated. It doesn't have to be. He was leaning closer, and I knew he was going to kiss me. Part of me wanted him to, but a car door slammed nearby, and I stepped back, startled. I have to go back inside. Ginevra, wait. But I was already walking away, my heart pounding. Inside, I found Elias sitting alone at our table, staring at his untouched drink. There you are, I said, trying to sound casual. I was looking for you. He looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but something colder, something final. Were you? Because I've been sitting here for 20 minutes, and several people have asked me where my wife went. I needed some air. It's stuffy in here. Is it? He stood up slowly. I think we should go. But the party's not over. It is for us. The drive home was silent except for the sound of the radio playing softly. When we picked up Hazel from Linda's, my mother-in-law's goodbye was noticeably chilly. "Everything all right?" Linda asked Elias quietly, while I buckled Hazel into her car seat. "Everything's fine, Mum." But I caught the look that passed between them, and I knew it wasn't fine at all. Sunday morning arrived grey and drizzling, matching the atmosphere in our house. I woke up to find Elias's side of the bed empty and cold. He'd obviously been up for hours. Downstairs, I found him making pancakes for Hazel, who was colouring at the kitchen table. The domestic scene should have been comforting, but instead it felt like a performance we were all pretending to believe in. "Morning," I said, pouring myself coffee. "Morning," Elias replied without looking at me. Hazel glanced up from her colouring book. "Mommy, why did you and Daddy leave the party early last night? Grandma Linda said you might have had a fight." "We didn't have a fight, sweetheart. We were just tired." I shot a look at Elias. "Your grandmother shouldn't be discussing our personal business with you." She was worried about Daddy. She said he looked sad. "Hazel, eat your pancakes," Elias said gently, placing a plate in front of her. My phone buzzed with a text. "Adrian, can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" I quickly deleted the message, but not before Elias noticed me checking my phone. "Work emergency on Sunday morning?" he asked. "Just Tina. She's having more problems with her boyfriend." It was becoming harder to keep track of my lies, but I couldn't stop now. After breakfast, while Hazel watched cartoons in the living room, Elias cornered me in the kitchen. "We need to talk about last night," he said quietly. "What about it?" "About the way you were dancing with that bartender. About the way you disappeared for 20 minutes. His name is Adrian, and we're old friends. I was just being friendly." "Friendly?" Elias's voice remained calm, but I could see the tension in his jaw. "Ginevra, half the party was staring at you. Margaret Patterson asked me if everything was okay in our marriage." "Margaret Patterson is a gossip who has nothing better to do than judge other people." "And what about Mark? He seemed pretty concerned too." "Your brother has never liked me. You know that. This isn't about Mark or Margaret or anyone else. This is about you grinding against another man on the dance floor while your husband watched." Heat flashed through me, part embarrassment, part anger. I was not grinding against anyone. We were dancing. Since when is dancing a crime? Since you started acting like you're single. "Oh, that's rich. When was the last time you asked me to dance? When was the last time you made me feel like a desirable woman instead of just the person who shares your mortgage and raises your child?" "My child? Hazel is our daughter." "You know what I mean." "No, I don't. Explain it to me." I turned away, unable to meet his eyes. "You've gotten complacent, Elias. We both have. We're like roommates who happen to sleep in the same bed. So your solution is to flirt with your ex-boyfriend in public?" "I wasn't flirting. And how did you know he was my ex?" Elias was quiet for a moment. "Because I remember you talking about him years ago. Adrian Lowe, the one who broke your heart senior year of college." The fact that he remembered made me feel even more guilty, which made me angrier. "That was a long time ago." "Was it? Because last night it looked pretty current." "You're being paranoid." "Am I? Then why won't you look at me when you're talking?" I forced myself to meet his gaze. "I'm looking at you now. And lying to me." "I'm not. Ginevra, I know you. I've known you for 10 years. I know when you're lying." The front door opened, and my mother's voice called out, "Hello, anyone home?" I felt a rush of relief. Miriam Fox had perfect timing, as always. "In the kitchen, Mom," I called back. My mother swept into the kitchen like a force of nature, all flowing scarves and dramatic gestures. At 55, she still thought of herself as the bohemian artist she'd been in her 20s, even though she now worked as a real estate agent. "Darling, you look tired," she said, kissing my cheek. "Elias, you look positively grim. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, Mom. Elias is just having one of his moods." Miriam's eyes sharpened. "What kind of mood?" The kind where he thinks I can't have a conversation with an old friend without it being some kind of scandal. Oh, for heaven's sake. Elias, surely you're not being one of those controlling husbands. I'm not being controlling, Elias said quietly. I'm being concerned about my wife's behavior. Her behavior? What behavior? I could see Elias struggling with whether to air our dirty laundry in front of my mother. His natural reserve won out. It's nothing, Miriam. Just a misunderstanding. It doesn't sound like nothing. Ginevra is a grown woman. She's allowed to have friends. Of course she is. Then what's the problem? Elias looked at me, and I saw something shift in his expression. A decision being made. There's no problem, he said finally. I think I'll take Hazel to the park. Daddy, can we feed the ducks? Hazel appeared in the doorway, already putting on her jacket. Sure, sweetheart. Go get the old bread from the freezer. After they left, my mother settled in at the kitchen table with her coffee. That man is going to drive you crazy with his jealousy, she said. He's not usually like this. All men get like this when they start feeling insecure. Your father was the same way. The trick is not to let them make you feel guilty for living your life. I don't feel guilty. Good, you shouldn't. You're young and beautiful, and if some man appreciates that, it's not your fault your husband doesn't. But I did feel guilty, especially when I thought about the hurt in Elias's eyes. Still, my mother's words were comforting. Maybe I wasn't the villain in this story. Maybe I was just a woman who deserved to feel appreciated. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an unknown number. You should check your bank app. Frowning, I opened my banking app and scrolled through recent transactions. Everything looked normal until I got to Friday's entries. There was a transfer I didn't remember making. $500 moved from our joint checking account to my personal savings. But I hadn't made that transfer. Everything all right, darling? My mother asked. Fine, just work stuff. But it wasn't fine. Someone had access to our joint account, and it wasn't me, which meant it had to be Elias. But why would he move money and then send me an anonymous text about it, unless it wasn't anonymous at all? The following Tuesday was Hazel's school fall festival, one of those mandatory parent events that I usually dreaded. But this year, I saw it as an opportunity to prove that Elias and I were still the perfect couple, despite the tension that had been building since the party. I dressed carefully, a burgundy sweater that brought out my eyes and jeans that showed off my figure without being inappropriate for a school function. When Elias saw me, he nodded approvingly. You look nice, he said. Thank you. It was the first compliment he'd given me in days, and I felt a small flutter of hope. Maybe we could get past this rough patch. Maybe things could go back to normal. The elementary school gymnasium was decorated with paper leaves and pumpkins, and the air smelled like apple cider and popcorn. Hazel ran ahead to find her friends while Elias and I made our way through the crowd of parents and children. Ginevra, Elias! Carol Henderson waved us over to where she was standing with several other parents from Hazel's class. How are you two doing? Great, I said brightly. Just great. But I noticed the way Carol's eyes lingered on me, and how the conversation seemed to pause when we approached. These were the same people who had been at the anniversary party, and I could tell they remembered my dance with Adrian. Hazel's doing so well in Mrs. Peterson's class, said Jennifer Walsh, trying to fill the awkward silence. She loves school, Elias replied. She's been working on a project about butterflies. How sweet. Kids are so creative at this age. The conversation continued in fits and starts, but I could feel the undercurrent of judgment. These suburban parents with their perfect marriages and their carefully controlled lives, they thought they were better than me. I'm going to get some cider, I announced. I'll come with you, Elias said. I can manage on my own. At the refreshment table, I ran into Linda, who was volunteering to serve drinks. Hello, Ginevra, she said coolly. Hi, Linda. Thank you for watching Hazel on Saturday. Of course. She's my granddaughter. The emphasis on my wasn't lost on me. She had a good time with you. She did. though she was confused about why you and Elias left the party so early. We were tired. Linda handed me a cup of cider, her expression carefully neutral. I'm sure you were. Dancing can be exhausting. The barb hit its mark, but I kept my expression pleasant. It was a lovely party. The Hendersons seemed happy. They were. 25 years of marriage is quite an accomplishment in this day and age. Yes, it is. Of course, it requires commitment from both partners, loyalty, respect. Of course. Linda's smile was sharp. I'm glad we understand each other. I walked away before I said something I'd regret, but my hands were shaking with anger. How dare she lecture me about loyalty and respect? She didn't know anything about my marriage, about what I was going through. Back in the crowd, I found Elias talking to Mark and his wife Susan. Mark's expression was cold when he saw me approaching. Ginevra, he said with obvious reluctance. Mark, Susan, how are the kids? Fine, Susan replied, but she seemed uncomfortable. An awkward silence fell over the group. Finally, Susan excused herself to check on their son, and Mark followed, leaving me alone with Elias. That was weird, I said. Was it? Mark barely spoke to me. Maybe he didn't have anything to say. Or maybe you've been talking to him about our personal business. Elias looked at me steadily. Our personal business is becoming pretty public, don't you think? What's that supposed to mean? It means that when my wife dances with another man like she's auditioning for a music video, people notice. God, you're never going to let this go, are you? Let what go? The fact that you humiliated me in front of our friends and neighbors. I didn't humiliate anyone. You're being dramatic. Am I? Because 3 different people have asked me if everything's okay in our marriage. 3 people, Ginevra. Heat flushed through me. And what did you tell them? I told them everything was fine, but we both know that's not true, don't we? Before I could answer, Hazel came running over with a paper plate full of cookies. Look what I made, Mummy. Mrs. Peterson helped me decorate them. The cookies were covered in orange frosting and sprinkles, clearly made with more enthusiasm than skill. They're beautiful, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile. Try one. I bit into a cookie that was mostly frosting and sugar. Delicious. Daddy, you try one too. Elias took a cookie and made a big show of enjoying it, making Hazel giggle. Watching them together, I felt a pang of something. Guilt, maybe, or regret. Can we go look at the art display? Hazel asked. Of course, Elias said. Lead the way. As we walked through the hallway lined with children's artwork, I noticed more people staring at us. Whispered conversations that stopped when we passed. Knowing looks and barely concealed smirks. I'd wanted to prove that Elias and I were still solid, but instead, I felt like we were on display, a marriage in trouble that everyone could see but no one would acknowledge directly. There's my butterfly project. Hazel pointed to a poster covered with construction paper butterflies and crayon drawings. It's wonderful, I said, and meant it. My daughter had written about the life cycle of butterflies, complete with illustrations of caterpillars transforming into beautiful winged creatures. Mrs. Peterson says butterflies have to go through a lot of changes before they can fly, Hazel explained seriously. That's right, Elias said. Sometimes change is hard, but it can lead to something beautiful. I wondered if he was talking about butterflies or something else entirely. My phone buzzed with a text. Without thinking, I pulled it out to check. Adrian, miss you. When can we talk? I quickly put the phone away, but not before Elias saw me checking it. Work? He asked. Yes. But his expression told me he didn't believe me anymore. On the drive home, Hazel chatted about the festival from the back seat, while Elias and I sat in silence. The distance between us felt like a physical thing, growing wider with each passing mile. Mummy, are you and Daddy getting divorced? Hazel asked suddenly. I nearly choked. What? No, sweetheart. Why would you ask that? Because Tommy Walsh's parents got divorced, and he said they used to not talk to each other, just like you and Daddy. Elias and I exchanged a look in the rearview mirror. "Mommy and Daddy are just tired lately," Elias said gently. "Sometimes grown-ups go through stressful times, but that doesn't mean we don't love each other or you." "Okay," Hazel said, but she didn't sound convinced. That night, after Hazel was asleep, I found Elias in his home office, working on architectural drawings. "We should talk," I said. "Should we?" "About what Hazel said in the car, about people at the festival." He set down his pencil and looked at me. "What about them?" "They were all staring at us, judging us." "Judging you, you mean?" "Fine, judging me. Is that what you want? For me to be the neighborhood pariah?" "I want you to be my wife, but I'm starting to think that's not what you want anymore." The words hung between us like a challenge. I could have denied it, could have fought to save what we had. Instead, I heard myself saying, "Maybe it's not." Elias went very still. "What did you say?" "Maybe I don't want to be the perfect suburban wife anymore. Maybe I want something more." "More than what? More than our family? More than our daughter? More than this?" I gestured around the small office, the house, the life we'd built together. "More than feeling invisible and unappreciated and taken for granted." "I don't take you for granted." "Don't you? When was the last time you really looked at me, Elias? When was the last time you made me feel like a woman instead of just a mother and a housekeeper?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Is that what this is about? You feeling unappreciated?" "It's about me feeling alive for the first time in years. With him, with Adrian." I didn't deny it. Elias nodded slowly, as if something had been confirmed. "I see. Elias, I think you should sleep in the guest room tonight." "What?" "I need some space to think, and I think you do too." I wanted to argue, but the truth was, I was relieved. The pretense was exhausting. "Fine," I said. As I gathered my things from our bedroom, I felt both liberated and terrified. I was finally being honest about what I wanted, but I had no idea what would happen next. What I didn't know was that Elias had already started planning. The next few days passed in a strange, suspended animation. Elias and I were polite to each other in front of Hazel, but otherwise barely spoke. I continued sleeping in the guest room, telling myself it was temporary, that we just needed time to figure things out. But deep down, I knew something fundamental had shifted. The careful facade of our marriage had cracked, and neither of us seemed interested in repairing it. On Thursday morning, I was getting ready for work when I realized my phone was missing. I searched everywhere, the guest room, the kitchen, my purse, but couldn't find it anywhere. "Have you seen my phone?" I asked Elias as he was making coffee. "No. Did you check your car?" I spent 10 minutes searching the car before finally giving up and using the house phone to call my own number. I could hear it ringing somewhere in the house, but the sound was muffled, distant. "It's here somewhere," I told Elias. "The ringer's on. I'm sure it'll turn up." But there was something in his tone that made me look at him more closely. He was avoiding my eyes, focusing intently on his coffee. "Elias, do you know where my phone is?" "Why would I know where your phone is?" "I don't know, you just seem strange about it." "I'm not strange about anything. I'm trying to get ready for work." I was late for my job at the insurance company, so I had to leave without my phone. All day, I felt disconnected, anxious. What if Adrian tried to reach me? What if there was an emergency with Hazel? When I got home that evening, my phone was sitting on the kitchen counter. "Found it," Elias said without looking up from the mail he was sorting. "Where was it?" "Between the couch cushions." I picked up the phone and immediately noticed that the battery was nearly dead, even though I'd charged it the night before. Strange. I plugged it in and waited for it to boot up. When it finally turned on, I had several missed calls and texts from Adrian, each one more concerned than the last. "Are you okay? You're not answering." "Starting to worry, call me." "Ginevra, please respond. Did something happen?" I quickly typed back, "Sorry, lost my phone. Everything's fine." His response came immediately. "Thank God, I thought your husband found out about us." The word us sent a thrill through me, followed immediately by a stab of guilt. Was there an us? We'd kissed once, years ago in college. We'd danced at a party. We'd exchanged flirty texts. But was that enough to constitute an us? "Can you meet me tomorrow?" Adrian texted. "I need to see you." I looked around the kitchen, making sure Elias wasn't nearby. "Where?" "Murphy's bar. After work. Please, Gin, we need to talk." I hesitated. Meeting him would cross a line that I couldn't uncross. But hadn't I already crossed it? Hadn't I already made my choice when I told Elias I wanted something more? "Okay, 6 p.m. "Can't wait to see you." I deleted the conversation and put my phone away, but my hands were shaking. Friday evening, I told Elias I was working late again. He didn't question it, just nodded and said he'd pick up Hazel from after-school care. Murphy's bar was dimly lit and nearly empty when I arrived. Adrian was waiting in a corner booth, and his face lit up when he saw me. "You came," he said, standing to hug me. I said I would. He held me a moment longer than necessary, and I breathed in his cologne, let myself enjoy the feeling of being wanted. "You look incredible," he said as we sat down. "Thank you." The bartender brought over 2 drinks, vodka tonic for me, beer for Adrian. He must have ordered for me, remembering my preference from the anniversary party. "I've been thinking about you constantly," Adrian said. "About us, about what this could be." "Adrian, I'm still married." "Are you? Really? Because from what I can see, you're married on paper, but not in any way that matters." "It's complicated." "It doesn't have to be. You're unhappy, Gin. Anyone can see that. You deserve better." "I have a daughter to think about. And she deserves a mother who's happy. Kids can sense when their parents are miserable. Trust me, I know." Adrian's parents had divorced when he was 12, I remembered. He'd always said it was a relief when the fighting finally stopped. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "I'm suggesting you stop pretending and admit what you really want." "Which is?" "Me. Us. A chance to be happy." He reached across the table and took my hand. His touch was electric, sending shivers up my arm. "I can't just leave my marriage." "Why not? What's keeping you there besides habit and fear?" I thought about Elias, about the quiet way he'd been watching me lately, the sadness in his eyes. I thought about Hazel, about how confused she'd been when she asked if we were getting divorced. But I also thought about how alive I felt sitting here with Adrian, how seen and appreciated and desired. "I need time," I said. "How much time?" "I don't know." Adrian squeezed my hand. "I'm not going anywhere. I waited for you once before, remember? I can wait again." That was different. We were kids then. Were we? Because I loved you then, and I think I'm falling in love with you again now. The words hit me like a physical blow. Love. When was the last time someone had said they loved me and meant it the way Adrian did? With passion, with desire, with the promise of something exciting and new. "Adrian, you don't have to say anything. Just think about it." We talked for another hour, about our dreams, our regrets, the paths our lives had taken. Adrian told me about his failed marriage, about how he'd never stopped thinking about me, about how seeing me again had made him realize what he'd been missing. I found myself opening up to him in ways I hadn't with anyone in years. He listened to me, really listened, in a way that made me feel important and valued. When I finally left the bar, it was nearly 8 o'clock. I felt guilty about lying to Elias, but also exhilarated. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again, not just a wife and mother, but a desirable woman with choices. At home, I found Elias helping Hazel with her homework at the kitchen table. "Sorry I'm late," I said. "The quarterly reports took longer than expected." "No problem," Elias said without looking up. "We managed fine." But there was something in his tone, a flatness that made me look at him more closely. He seemed tired, older somehow. "How was your day, sweetheart?" I asked Hazel. "Good. Daddy made spaghetti for dinner, and we saved you some. That was thoughtful." Daddy was sad, though. He kept checking his phone and sighing. "Hazel," Elias said gently, "why don't you go get ready for your bath?" After she left, Elias and I were alone in the kitchen. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine." "Hazel said you seemed sad." "Did she?" "Elias, talk to me." He finally looked up from the homework papers he was organizing. "What would you like me to say, Ginevra?" "I don't know, something, anything. We can't keep living like this." "Living like what?" "Like strangers, like roommates." "Whose fault is that?" The question hung between us. I wanted to argue, to deflect, but I was tired of pretending. "Maybe it's nobody's fault," I said. "Maybe we just grew apart." "Maybe." "So what do we do about it?" Elias was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, but I think we both know this can't continue." "What does that mean?" "It means I think we need to make some decisions. About what we want, about what's best for Hazel." "Are you talking about separation?" "I'm talking about being honest, with each other and with ourselves." I felt a flutter of panic. "I don't want to hurt Hazel." "Neither do I, but staying together for her sake when we're both miserable isn't helping anyone." He was right, and I knew it, but hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way that terrified me. "I need to think," I said. "So do I." That night, lying alone in the guest room, I stared at the ceiling and tried to imagine my life without Elias. Part of me was excited by the possibility, freedom, romance, a chance to start over with Adrian, but part of me was scared. Elias had been my anchor for 10 years. He was steady, reliable, safe. But safe wasn't enough anymore. I wanted to feel alive, and Adrian made me feel alive. My phone buzzed with a text. "Sweet dreams, beautiful. Can't wait to see you again." I smiled and typed back, "Sweet dreams to you too." What I didn't know was that Elias was in his office down the hall, printing out screenshots of every text message I'd sent and received over the past month. He'd been planning this for weeks, ever since the night of the anniversary party, when he'd finally accepted what he'd been trying to deny. His wife was having an affair, and now he had the evidence to prove it. The envelope was thick, official-looking, and sitting on the kitchen counter when I got home from work on Monday evening. My name was written across the front in Elias's careful handwriting. "What's this?" I asked, picking it up. Elias was standing by the window, looking out at our backyard where Hazel was playing on her swing set. He didn't turn around when he answered. "Open it." My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope. The first page was a legal document with bold letters across the top. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The words swam before my eyes. I flipped through the pages. Custody arrangements, asset division, grounds for divorce. It was all there, meticulously detailed and legally binding. "Elias, what is this?" "I think it's pretty self-explanatory." "You're divorcing me?" He finally turned around, and I was shocked by the change in his appearance. He looked older, more serious, but also somehow stronger. The mild, accommodating man I'd married had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize. "We're divorcing each other," he said calmly. "This is just making it official." "But we never talked about this. We never—" "Didn't we? I thought we covered this pretty thoroughly last week when you told me you wanted something more than our marriage." "I was upset. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." His voice was quiet but firm. "And you know what? You were right. You do deserve more than what we have. And so do I." I sank into a kitchen chair, the papers scattered in front of me. "I can't believe you did this without talking to me first." "I tried talking to you. For months I tried. But you were too busy with your new life to listen." "My new life?" Elias walked to the kitchen counter and picked up a manila folder I hadn't noticed before. He opened it and spread the contents across the table in front of me. Text message printouts, bank statements, photos from the anniversary party, call logs showing dozens of calls to and from Adrian's number. "Your new life with Adrian Lowe," Elias said. My mouth went dry. How did I get your text messages? I've been paying the phone bill for 10 years, Ginevra. It took one call to add message monitoring to our account. The kitchen table looked like a crime scene recreation of my marriage. Elias didn't raise his voice. He just opened the binder. Page 1, screenshots of me telling Adrian I was done pretending. Page 7, the apartment application I'd filled out at 2 a.m. after too much wine. Page 14, a timeline, dates, times, lies, color-coded like a project plan. You spied on me. I protected Hazel, he said, and what was left of my self-respect. I tried the usual defenses, privacy, context, it's not what it looks like, but every excuse died against the evidence. Where's Hazel? With my mum. She doesn't need to watch her mother lie in real time. He slid the divorce papers across. Primary custody to him. The house to him. Me. Every other weekend and Wednesday dinners. You can't take her from me. You handed her to me the night you told another man you couldn't wait to start your new life. My phone buzzed on the table. Adrian. Everything okay, babe? Miss you already? Elias glanced at it and almost smiled. Sad, tired, final. Answer him, he said. Tell him congratulations. You're free. I didn't touch the phone. 3 days later, I signed. 2 months later, I was in a one-bedroom with second-hand furniture and a calendar full of empty weekends. Adrian lasted 4 months once the fantasy met shared grocery bills and my crying in the shower. He said I was too heavy now. Elias kept the house, the dog, and the daughter, who now calls his new girlfriend Miss Claire, without hesitation. Hazel still hugs me like I'm fragile during pickups, like she's afraid I'll break or disappear again. Some nights I drive past the old house. The lights are warm. Hazel's artwork is in the window. There's a new swing on the porch. I got the freedom I thought I wanted. Turns out it's just another word for having no one waiting up. Elias was right. He didn't destroy our family. He just stopped letting me do it for him.